Greetings, good evening, everybody. Sorry for the slight delay there. We had a slight technical issue. I had to reboot, and now we're back up and running. So, welcome to another fabulous episode of D Live, the Convo series. Tonight, I am joined by Heather Gerker and Madelyn, aka Mads Gerker, joining us this evening from. Hey, everybody, how's it going, Mads? Um, yeah, we'll just give it a moment here and let some folks come online. They're starting to join us, but we've had a number of great guests on. Last night we had PG Sittenfeld, Council Member PG, who's now being upstaged tonight by by us having Mads here. And this is a super cool story that I want to get into, and maybe some of you have heard it. For those that haven't, one of the great things, and another one of my guests, Cam Hardy, was on last week, and we're talking about the bus system and Metro here in Cincinnati. And Cam's an example of somebody who got engaged and really made change in the city. And here we have an example of it with Madelyn, who's in the sixth grade and has really changed the look and the safety in her neighborhood. And so this is going to be a great story, and I look forward to getting into it. But before we do, how are you guys doing? How are you holding up? What's going on with COVID-19? Mads, is everything cool over there?
Yeah, I have a plan set up that I do every Monday morning.
Yeah. So well, first of all, but let's get into that because I want to talk a little bit too, because along with your advocacy that you've done, helping to make our streets and sidewalks safer in your neighborhood for kids walking to school. I also want to hear about how this has impacted you with being home from school and kind of doing this homeschooling and how that's kind of worked out. But first of all, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? One of the things that we do on the program is we like to learn more about folks, not just what we see, publicly, but tell me a little bit about how old are you? Where do you go to school? And those kinds of things.
I live in Mount Washington, and I go to school at Sans Montessori. I'm also a co-chair with Jeremiah Thornton. He goes by JT. It's a pedestrian safety task force called STOPS, Students Taking on Pedestrian Safety.
And you and I have gotten to know each other a little bit because this is one of the issues that's near and dear and a passion of mine, with Vision Zero and our efforts to reduce traffic crashes all across the city. But one of the things that really brought that to light, well, first of all, for me, I was a police officer for 26 years. And so, I've seen so many of these negative outcomes and just the tragedies that have happened on our streets, from crashes. And so across the city, a number of people, a number of groups in different neighborhoods had begun to work on this issue and try to approach it from different angles. But one of the problems that we ran into is just there wasn't this kind of overarching concern from all of the powers that be in the city, and we were having a hard time kind of gaining traction with some of it until we had, not this past fall, but the prior fall, about 13 CPS kids hit by cars within a 10-week span. And after that, and we had a couple fatalities, which is crazy and so tragic. And so that really, I think, helped us to kind of raise the awareness level. But around that same time, because it's been about 2 years ago now, you noticed an issue in your neighborhood and you walked to school. Is that right? Tell us about that and what was going on and what you noticed.
Well, one time we were just walking to school, and then I asked my mom, why don't we have a sidewalk? She tried, and then she stopped for a little, and then I asked her again. She worked some more, and then I eventually just took over for her. And usually when we're walking to school, then we have to yell car, when a car is coming, and then just jump into the grass.
And which is crazy to think that we still have in Cincinnati, in the city of Cincinnati, we have streets, particularly in the Mount Washington neighborhood, that don't have sidewalks. And so here you are walking to school. And Heather, correct me if I'm wrong on this. You had actually kind of tried to approach this issue a little bit in the past, right? And unfortunately, as it turns out, Mads had some more success. But tell us a bit about that, or what happened on the background.
Sure. I mean, her story is right on. And if I added a little bit to that, I would just say she asked me why we didn't have a sidewalk on the way. I was like, I have no idea. I can try to find out. And I just called a couple of friends that I have that work in government or understand the systems at that time better than I do. And no one really, honestly, I kept getting sent to different offices.
Right. So there's a
Um,
little bit of a bureaucracy, a red tape, kind of a runaround,
yeah,
and it just wasn't taken seriously
yeah. And
previously. And
yeah,
then,
I kind of just like forgot about it. We still walked to school. I don't know, life is busy, right? Like work full time with kids and all that jazz. But she kept on me, and I didn't have any answers. And we have a close friend here in Mount Washington, Sarah Henry, who is on Mount Washington Community Council and has a law background and just has been super supportive of Madelyn. And she started coaching Madelyn and helping her understand the system. And then Madelyn decided to write a letter to the mayor. And this was I was actually out of town when all that happened for work, so it's pretty cool that she just kind of took it. Like she said, she just took it and kept going because we walk every day.
right. And I can tell you that's one of the things that we're seeing in neighborhoods across the city of Cincinnati, is this kind of this re-emphasis on walkable neighborhoods, walkable neighborhood business districts, and making it safe to do that. And that we need infrastructure for people to be able to walk and to be able to ride their bikes. And that these spaces are not just for the cars to go flying through our neighborhoods, but to really make it safe to, whether it's walk down to the neighborhood coffee shop to get a coffee, or obviously for kids to be able to walk to school. This is one of the most important things. So, Mads, tell us like about what you were thinking about in terms of that process, or how that went when you wrote a letter to Mayor Cranley, and that really got all of this started because you got people's attention. What did you think it was going to have an effect? What did you think was going to happen?
I really just wanted to keep everyone safe, including my family and everyone else. And so yeah, tried. My mom helped me a lot, and eventually she asked me if I should write a letter, and then I did.
Yeah, and were you hopeful? Did you think it was going to have an impact? Because a lot of times in government, like the problem that your mom ran into, sometimes you just folks aren't taken seriously, or it's just a lot of times there's a lot of red tape, and it just takes a long time to get through all that. What did you do? What did you think happened versus kind of what did happen? Because at some point you started getting phone calls from folks, and people started reaching out to you about your letter, right?
So I wasn't really sure if it was gonna work. Eventually it did, but like, a couple of representatives walked with me to school, and I gave them the note, and then they gave it to Mayor Cranley.
And so did the mayor call you, or how did that work out? Because eventually you got invited down to City Hall. I know you were in front of the Planning Commission, and then we'll talk a little bit about what actually happened and what the status is now, because it's been about 2 years since you originally wrote your letter. I think it was in March of 2018, right? So how did that go? Did the mayor call you, or what happened next?
I'm not really sure.
Do you
My
Yeah,
mom
remember?
really told me about it.
Don't remember. Well, at some point, at some
it's
point,
been I mean, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster. Mayor Cranley called pretty quickly after the letter. PG Sittenfeld, who you had on last night,
yeah.
was super supportive. And I think he was the one who filed the motion in council with the letter. I don't even know how it actually, you probably know better than I do, Derek. But that he was really supportive, and that got more attention for Madelyn. And then the mayor called her and invited us to come and meet with him, which we did. And then really from there, just so many different people started to get engaged. Many news channels reached out to talk to Madelyn, and so that increased the attention to what she was trying to do. But we can't even keep track of how many things she's done. She's been in a lot of planning meetings. The Department of Engineering with the city has been amazing, not only in helping us get the grant written, but in really teaching Madelyn and inviting her into these normally adult spaces to sit at the table with them and showing her the plans and showing her like why and what. And it's been pretty amazing. But I agree with Madelyn. I don't know that we could tell you like chronologically how it all happened.
So yeah, so I can fill in a little bit of the blanks there. So there was an application made to the state of Ohio. There's a program called Safe Routes to School. It's a national program, and funding comes down from the federal government to different states. And at the end of the day, the end result was I think it was $400,000 grant that was provided to the city of Cincinnati to install these sidewalks on Sussex Avenue. And one of the things that you mentioned there that I think is really great about the leadership that we do have currently in the city of Cincinnati with our school board, and we've connected in that regard because we know Cincinnati Public Schools and our school board is one of the first school districts nationally to adopt Vision Zero, this effort to reduce traffic crashes and pedestrian fatalities to zero. And so they've been leading on that and engaging the young people. Mads mentioned the group that she's involved with at CPS, where we have students, leading these efforts and getting involved. And we've seen that, especially after we had all the kids hit tragically in the fall of 2018. So I think it's fantastic that, Council Member Landsman has been really involved in this as well, a neighbor of yours in the Mount Washington neighborhood.
Yeah, the task force Madelyn mentioned early on, STOPS, is actually out of Councilmember Landsman's office. And that was his team who helped start that and invited Madelyn and JT to co-chair that together. Madelyn, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure we have meetings usually once every month or two, and then we're actually having one this Saturday. So if anyone's watching this and they're a student that goes to school in Cincinnati, then Derek might be able to hook you up to us, and then we could.
Sure. Yeah, we can get folks connected. So and one of the things, and you'll be able to go back and look at this after we're done in the Facebook comments, and if you want to respond to anyone in the comments, that's cool. And we can get folks connected, absolutely. So will you do this because of the current situation? Will you do it online? Will it be some type of Zoom meeting or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of that, I just want to really touch on that point, that I think it's a great thing in our community that the young people's voices are being heard and really making an impact and moving the needle. I think it's just a really cool thing about Cincinnati is that you can get involved and you can make change here. And sometimes it's not the first or the second or the third time, but I think if we stick with it, we can make an impact. Just regular citizens, whomever we are, even if you're in the 5th or 6th grade. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, Madelyn probably won't say this, so I'm going to say it for her. It wasn't just the letter that she wrote. She also spoke in front of community council here in Mount Washington. She spoke in front of city council in Cincinnati. She spoke at the school board a couple of times. She spoke at Student Achievement Committee meeting, which is a committee out of the school board. So she wrote the letter that got her started, but the amount of speech writing this one has already done.
I went to the kindergarten class.
Oh.
One time I went to Indian Hills to speak to a group of kindergartners about the importance of writing a persuasive letter.
No, and that's awesome, and that just shows you how if you just kind of stick with it, and it's kind of a little bit of how advocacy works, right? That you kind of attack a problem from different angles, get different groups of people all involved towards a common goal, and you can have a huge impact. So it's been very powerful. Now, what's the status of Sussex Avenue right now? Has the work been completed? What is the status of the sidewalks? We got the grant, and do we know where the project stands right now?
It's gonna happen next year. It's gonna happen next summer.
So, again, these things do take a long time, the planning and all of that. And of course, not walking to school right now, but you're actually going to be out of there, right? But the value of this will live on. I probably shouldn't say this, but I mean, if you wrote your name in the concrete, probably nobody would be mad. But don't tell anybody I said it was okay. But, 5 and 10 and 15, 20 years from now, those sidewalks will still be there. When you're an adult someday, you can come back and say, I did that as a kid. That's pretty cool, right? And so you're going to have a lasting impact, even though for you walking to school, you won't necessarily have the benefits of that, but it's close to your house, so I'm sure you'll use it at some point. What are your plans now going forward? So you're about to graduate from the sixth grade, is that right?
Yeah.
So I vaguely remember those days because it was a long time ago. But you've been at Sands Montessori, and now what's your plans after Sands? How's that working out?
We got the Clark lottery, so we're gonna go to Clark next.
Clark Montessori in Hyde Park, right? And
Yeah.
so before we came on here, I mentioned that I have a special soft spot in my heart for Clark because I get invited there a couple of times a year to speak to the juniors on government and civics. So maybe one day, as smart as you are, you might jump ahead a few grades and end up there pretty quick. I don't know, but maybe I'll see you there. But that's pretty cool. But we've had the opportunity to connect and working on all this traffic safety stuff. And one of the things that you get to do, which you're like an old pro right now, I can see the difference over time with the media and such. So we were on the radio together. I know you've had the news reporters showing up at your house. What do you think about that? How was it the first time you were on camera with a mic and all of a sudden you have to talk? How is it comfortable for you now? How was it before?
Well, at first it was a little odd because I didn't really we didn't expect them to show up. So it's a kind of funny story. When they showed up at our house, they knocked on the door, and everyone was in there. We were all in our PJs, and so we had to run upstairs to get dressed.
Oh, that's cool. Well, you're definitely an old pro at it now at this point. So and then I want to touch on in a minute kind of how things are going with school right now. But yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about that. Because I don't have kids, just Josie the cat here in my place. But I've heard about, and some of the challenges that some of the families are having being home from school now and kind of homeschooling and these types of things. How's that going for you? And tell us, like, what are you actually doing on a daily basis? How has that worked? Does CPS provide information for you? How does that work?
So basically at first it was a little stressful because I wasn't managing my time correctly. But eventually I made a plan, and that's what I make it every Monday morning of all the work that I'm gonna do.
So, what does a typical day look like for you now? It used to be, you get up in the morning and probably have breakfast and get ready and walk to school and dodge cars. Unfortunately, now you're not doing that. But what does a typical day in Mad's life look like now, being home and going to school at home?
Now I'm sleeping in a lot, so now I usually wake up at 8 o'clock. I usually open up my curtains, go downstairs, eat breakfast.
You're getting a play-by-play.
No, that's good. That's cool. That's what I
Yeah.
want to hear. So, and then I've heard about these packets. Does CPS provide packets, and how are you actually like doing your classes and stuff?
So usually, I had one today at noon. We through Google Meets, we met with each other and the teacher, everyone in our class. We would meet kind of like a class, and she would give us a lesson.
And does your mom help you with this stuff? Because I know if it was me helping you and it was like talking about algebra or something, which I think you take like in the sixth grade now, I might not be able to help too much. But how does that work out, or do you do it all online, or how does that work?
Some things we have this book called Springboard that she'll assign pages in that we have to do. Other than that, it's usually online. Or we have this packet that she sent home that has different pages, and we had to do that.
So do you think it's harder, or are you missing like school and actually being around your friends and actually at school, or what's your thoughts on that?
I still miss school, and I miss all my friends because when we usually meet, I usually only meet with my friends for for school or for something else that we're doing.
Gotcha. So yeah, so that just gives us a little bit of insight into your kind of your typical day now. So it sounds like you're managing okay. You are getting up earlier than me, so you might be sleeping until 8. I call that an early morning in my world, but yeah, things are definitely different now, and a lot of people are have it more difficult and challenging than we do. We have a lot of families in the Cincinnati Public School District that don't even have the internet, and so CPS is doing other things to try to help those. But we certainly appreciate all of those efforts and the kids trying to stay on track. So. What do you think the future holds now? Do you have a political career in front of you? Maybe you want to be, now you're a seasoned media professional. Maybe you want to go into, being a newscaster, or what do you what do you think? Do you have any ideas where you go from here, or just a full-time activist and advocate, and getting change made in our communities, or maybe all of the above? What do you think?
I'm still pretty young, but
Yeah, no
uh,
pressure or anything. You can change your mind in like 5 minutes. It's cool. But what have you had any thoughts?
I want to be an actress. And yeah, like you said, an activist.
Well, that's awesome. I think you're off to a great start, and keep it up. Do you see anything right now? Is there anything else that's up? The sidewalks are going to end up getting taken care of. It might end up with your signature in it. I don't know, but what is there anything else on your radar screen? A next problem to tackle, or where do you see the group and with the students, fighting for traffic safety and all of that? Where do we go from here? What's the next big issue you think you want to tackle, if there is one? I don't know.
My mom just whispered in my ear, a clean city.
Well, no, do you remember the big, the area of town that Stops is focusing on?
Yeah, in the west side of town, we're trying to get more crosswalks there, because sometimes, a lot of times when people are walking to school, when kids are walking to school, they have to play Frogger crossing the street to get to school.
You know the area we're talking about.
Yep.
And that's where JT lives, and so he's playing an awesome role and partnering with Madelyn in that.
Well, that's great, because he's on the west side, you're on the east side, and we can and I'm in the middle, so we can tackle this from all angles. But now I can go on my little editorial rant for just a moment. This is a problem that we can pick out individual streets and kind of take a Band-Aid approach. But this is something that is really an issue and a problem across our city. We've seen massive increase in the percentages of people being hit by cars, and there's so much that we can do from an infrastructure perspective holistically across the city, and we shouldn't have to just run over here when there's a problem and run over there where there's a problem. So there's a lot of, without getting into all of it, folks, please keep an eye on Vision Zero. It's a very important program that we're undertaking to really attack this, from not only the engineering of our streets, but the enforcement, making sure people are driving slowly, because if you're driving slowly, if you are in a crash, the results are not as bad. You have more time to react, and it just reduces those impacts. And then also education, which this is a big part of, is so letting people know what a terrible problem this is. We're in the middle of a pandemic right now. But we have in the United States between 35 and 40,000 people killed in car crashes every year. It's a pandemic of car crashes every year, and we don't need to accept that. So that's my little editorial rant. There's certainly a lot of work to be done on this. I will just share, I know, because you and I are connected on a Skype call, so you're not seeing all the comments that I can see here, but please, if you have a moment, go on the post afterwards. You got a lot of fans out here. Barbara Jean Job says you guys look great. Love Aunt Barb. Says hi to me as well. I appreciate that. Hello. And make sure I'm saying it right. Avenel Lee Arkana, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Loves the smiles, which is fantastic. Rose Beckner misses you, and she's so proud of you, Madelyn. So you got a lot of great comments on there. Go check those out. I really appreciate you all taking some time out of your schedule this evening and joining us. I know a lot of people appreciate it. Mads, best of luck to you going forward next year. Hopefully you're back in the classroom at Clark and with your friends and those kinds of things. And I don't know, is there any closing points you'd like to leave us with? Any words of wisdom before we sign off? What do you think?
It takes way too long for this to happen, and I also learned the importance of using your voice and how to use our privilege correctly.
Oh, I mean, those are very powerful words right there. And if we stick with it, and if we all stick together and work together on these common problems, I think we can make a lot of progress. So, Heather, thank you so much. Mads, thank you for joining all of us this evening. And we'll talk to you soon, okay? Cincinnati,
Thank you.
as always. Yeah, thank you. Cincinnati, as always, love you. Peace and be safe and be well, everyone. Have a great night.
Bye.